the state of MAGA Nation, a big confab down in Palm Beach this weekend, including hobnobbing with POTUS 45 at Mar-a-Lago. And all of this comes as the Biden administration begins to trot out its major infrastructure bill with bipartisan meetings today at the White House. Of course, apparently to the Biden White House, infrastructure, and I'm putting it in air quotes, means whatever you want it to mean. It's not just roads, highways, and bridges. It's also social infrastructure, apparently, like welfare reform, child care, who the heck knows what else. I'll tell you one thing, the infrastructure and fabric of our Constitution is what really needs protecting. But liberals clearly want to update that document too, because after all, in Joe Biden's own words, no amendment is absolute. And those words are actually absolutely terrifying. Joining me now to discuss all of this is Dave Bossie, president of Citizens United. Hey, Dave, let me start first with this weekend's GOP Palm Beach meetings. So what's the strategy by donors, top officials to recapture Congress and ultimately the White House, Dave?
Well, the president's solely focused on winning back the House and Senate in 2022. And everything that he is about, everything that he's doing, whether it is recruiting candidates, endorsing candidates, raising money, and participating in the public discourse as far as making sure the American people understand exactly what Joe Biden's radical agenda for America looks like. That's what the president's focused on. And we, after the midterms, he can focus on the future for himself. But that's his main goal. And that's why he was down at Mar-a-Lago meeting with the biggest supporters of the Republican National Committee. Ronna McDaniels was down there leading the effort as chairwoman of the RNC. And I got to tell you, the president is really focused on making sure that the American people know just how radical Joe Biden has turned out to be.
Dave, I want to put up a headline the Associated Press ran over the weekend. They went with this: Biden Republicans with a question mark. And then it says summon GOP open to president's agenda. What do you make of this? I know you're laughing because, it seems like the media loves to push this narrative that, and the Biden administration, as a matter of fact, is saying that they have bipartisan support. But where's their bipartisan support on anything? They're talking about polls, apparently.
Well, first of all, the Biden administration is lying. They continue to lie. It is really, unfortunately, Joe Biden talks about unity during the campaign. He talks about unity out of one side of his face, and he is absolutely the most radical left-wing socialist president this country's ever seen. And so, for them, it's just politics. They make these things up. They say Republicans are supporting this. I know of no Republicans, not one Republican. They talk about, in this, I guess it was an Associated Press poll, there were literally 4 so-called Republicans, voters, not elected officials, who say they are for Joe Biden's agenda or some piece of it. I find it to be ridiculous that the Biden administration lies about unity. They lie about infrastructure being bipartisan. And the mainstream media, instead of calling them out, instead of making them prove it, they go along with it. And the American people see through it. They know that the mainstream media is that the media is partisan. They know that they're in the bag for Joe Biden, and the Biden administration takes full advantage of it.
It seems like conservatives have to deal with one thing after another: cancel culture and big tech censorship. Now we're into wokeology, this wokeism by corporations. You had an op-ed over the weekend, and I want to put this up for folks. Just type in Dave Bossie op-ed, you'll find it. And this is what you say: as the fascist woke mob continues the politics of personal destruction by punishing the state of Georgia over false allegations about its new voting law, the Biden administration, Major League Baseball, and companies like Coca-Cola and Delta turn a blind eye to China's human rights abuses and voting crackdowns in Hong Kong. Talk about the duplicity here, Dave.
Well, it's quite honestly what America should be doing, and that's leading on what China has been doing for decades now. And the President Trump, was a leader on holding China accountable. Joe Biden, who he and his son Hunter seem to be in the pocket of China, they don't talk about the human rights abuses, the atrocities, the forced labor camps, the crackdown on Hong Kong, democracy in Hong Kong. They don't talk about any of these things because they want to blame President Trump. What Donald Trump did during his presidency was hold China's feet to the fire on all of those things, including trade. And now we see, after 1 year and 550,000 Americans losing their lives to the Chinese COVID virus, they want to blame President Trump for calling it the China virus instead of holding China responsible for the China virus. They want to make it about politics, and it's really so they go after the woke mobs, Coca-Cola, and all of these big corporations who do big business in China. They do big business in China. They don't want to affect their bottom line internationally, so that they don't say anything about China. But they do say they don't vote in China. They don't vote at all in China. We don't see Coca-Cola talking about boycotting the Olympics, which will be hosted by China next year in 2022. We should be boycotting China over the 550,000 American deaths. We should be boycotting over what the crackdown in Hong Kong. We should be boycotting over the China virus. But of course, the Biden administration, which is weak, it will do nothing of the sort. And these woke corporations who feel good about talking about how bad the lie about Georgia has become, they can't stand up to big business in China.
Dave, before we get out of here, I want to ask you about Senator John Cornyn's tweets early this morning. This is what he said. The President Biden, not doing cable news interviews, tweets from his account are limited, and when they come, unimaginably conventional. The public comments are largely scripted. Biden has opted for fewer sit-down interviews with mainstream outlets and reporters. And then he says this, invites the question, is he really in charge? And I must say, Dave, not that John Cornyn necessarily is watching this show day in and day out, but I've been saying that for a few months now. I mean, I've been saying that for at least the last month and a half. I mean, and I asked it in a serious way. Who is in charge of this White House? That is not hyperbole. That's not an overstatement. And I'm curious to get your take as to what might be happening inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
It's a great question, David. You and I have talked about this, over the last several months. It's a very scary thing. If Joe Biden was in charge, if he was actually in charge, don't you think we would have seen Kamala Harris down at the border? He put her in charge of this incredible fraud, this incredibly dangerous policy at the border, this stopping, building the wall, while at the same time inviting everyone in from across the border and creating this human rights tragedy that's going on. Every American can recognize it. If Joe Biden was in charge, he'd be trying to take care of it. If Joe Biden was in charge, there would be possible unity and bipartisan action on infrastructure. But look, we all know that Joe Biden is a weak president. I don't know day in and day out if he is fully in charge of the White House, or is radical Kamala Harris in charge, and is the left-wing staff, incredibly powerful White House staff, that senior staff, are they really calling the shots? And I think the mainstream media is doing really journalism a disservice, and the American people a disservice, by not asking these tough questions. And I think this is not going away, folks. Yeah. This is only going to get worse.
Right. It's like, where's the hard-hitting journalism? Go win a Pulitzer and go figure it out. So, all right, Dave Bossie, great to see you, sir. Thanks for the time. You're great.